Hi. Unfamiliar face today. So, I'm going to be doing this stream. Usually it's Chelve doing all these different things, but today I have gotten the task to do animation. To introduce myself, I guess, I am a third year, sixth semester right now, sixth semester student. I mostly do animation. I know like most of the other things as well, but like my heart lies in the animation, I guess. I've been on the stream a couple of times, sometimes popping in. Usually I'm standing around helping out when people are physically here as well. Because it just makes it easier to like have a couple of hands. And yeah, I'm the teacher today. Usually I'm the substitute teacher. Today I'm the actual teacher. So I'll be doing animation today. I am not as used to Blender, which is fine. So basically for the school, for CADA Max, we work with specific software. These mostly specifically being something called Maya, if you haven't heard of it. Laura, hi. All right, classmate. That's a classmate. Sick. So he's in the same semester as me. He's also, so I'm working on my thesis right now. We're working on like bigger projects. He's working on something else. Hi again. Hi, Mariam. Mariam? That's how you pronounce it, right? Is it cool? It's fine. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so at the school, so we basically mostly work with specific software. When it comes to like a lot of modeling and animation and stuff, it's mostly this software called Maya. But I am going to be using Blender. So, yes. You can follow along if you want to. I will send a link so you guys can actually, if not, it's pinned as well. But this is the link for the file that we're using today in Blender. It's basically just a pretty normal setup for a rig. A rig meaning, so basically when we want to animate in 3D, in case you're not aware, is that when we have an object, let me show an example, or let me actually show my screen. So in this case, we have an object. if we want this object to move, we give it basically a virtual skeleton that allows us to move it basically. So we go around and then we move on the actual skeleton to make the object move, which is what we have here. We have this barrel. This is how you're going to be seeing the file as well when you download it. And yeah, I will go into that in a bit. So more about me. So yeah, I'm working on my thesis, so is he, my classmate. Right now, I am doing a game. We're 3 people in a group. Actually, really exciting. So this is kind of our celebration day-ish because we just handed in our game. We're finished. We made the final build. We handed it in. We're very satisfied. Very fun. And yeah, and we're going to be releasing it at some point. So that's also very cool. So other people can play it. I remember you did say you want to animate a barrel, or animate the barrel. I thought you were joking. No. Okay, so okay, every time it's like Chelfe, the guy who usually educates or is the teacher. He always tries to push the animation onto me because he doesn't want to do it himself. And I really like animation, so I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And today he didn't have time to be the teacher, so he was like, you know what, you're gonna do it today, and you're gonna do great. So that's what we're doing. That's why I am the teacher today and not a substitute teacher. Well, I guess I'm still a substitute teacher because I'm not the main teacher. But yeah, congratulations on handing in. Thank you. Yeah, it's very fun. It's a very cool project. So it's like, so we've been working on it for a whole semester, right? So about 3 to 4 months, I think, we've had to make this project. In my case, making a game. I've been doing all the animation for the game, which is great. Also, when talking about animation, which is a thing that people can get confused a lot of the times, when we refer to animation in the 3D space, we generally only refer to the movement of things. So generally things that moves is animation. And then you can talk about like animation film like Disney and Pixar, all these different things. And we do call that animation, but it's generally only, when we talk about it, it's the actual movement of things, I guess, which is what we're doing today. And yeah, cool. This is so we've been doing this bootcamp thing for a while, like multiple months, right? And I haven't specifically been the one sitting in the seat without Chalfe in the background, and he isn't here, so I'm all on my own. So this is going to be great. Do let me know if you get confused about anything. I am more than willing to help, how much I can, at least. And yeah, if you have any questions, throw them at me. I'll try and go fairly slow through it so you guys can follow, to make it easier. And yeah, cool. So, barrels. Wow. Okay, so if you've downloaded the file, this is what your file is going to look like. Sometimes it also comes up with a prompt if it's the first time you are opening Blender. I'm not sure if it's going to do that. Assuming, I know, Mariam, you've been here the other times. Laura, I don't know if I've seen you in chat, or is this your first time being here for this like course, since we have lessons every week? Also, is this sound fine? Am I loud enough? Should I speak louder? I don't know. Do let me know. And yeah, but I'm gonna go through the basics of Blender just to make sure that we're all on the same page. When you've downloaded the file, it's gonna look like this. if it has like a small pop-up thing, just click OK. This is my first time being here. All right, cool. I will go through the basics with you then. Have you tried Blender before? The sound is great. Perfect. All right, cool. I'm glad to hear. And yeah, if it's your first time using Blender, I'm just going to go through the basics. If it's not, just follow along and don't judge me. Yeah. So, navigation in Blender works like this. So, for movement, we have a lot of different types of movement. We have like, what would you call that? Like circling around things and such. You basically hold the middle mouse button, which allows you to do that. I think there is. Do you remember? I'm not a Blender genius. Oh, what's this? Did that do anything? Screencast keys. Did that do anything? Don't mind me being a noob. No, that didn't do anything. All right, it's fine. It's trust the process. Huh. Okay. You know what? It's fine. We don't need it. It's cool. I was just trying to turn on the thing so you could see what I was clicking on, but there aren't that many hotkeys today, so it's fine. A little bit, but it would be nice if you would go through the basics. All right, cool. So to navigate around Blender, first we do middle mouse button. We hold it in, and that's basically going to circle around a specific pivot point or a specific pivot, which is set. Usually you can change this by like focusing on a specific object, and then it's going to rotate around that. In this case, it's kind of circling around the origin of this 3D space. Pretty basic. While holding the middle mouse button, and we're holding Alt on the keyboard, we can snap the camera by like middle mouse clicking. And then sometimes it's being a bit jank, so you have to like do some larger strokes to make sure that it does this. But basically it just focuses strictly on like from one axis, kind of making it a 2D image, seeing it from that angle. And then if you just let go of Alt and then do normal middle mouse button again, it's going to go back to this thing. I'm really sad this isn't working actually, because I really wanted to have these keys on. But I might be doing something wrong. If you guys know how, you can let me know. Okay, so that's one thing. So we have these two. Then we also have, if you hold Control on the keyboard and using the middle mouse click again, then we basically zoom in and zoom out by moving the mouse while holding both in. That's a zoom. You also have normal zoom, like just scrolling on your scroll wheel. One is just a bit more smoother, so you can get like a bit closer or like more smooth zooming if you don't want to go in steps, basically. I do use Blender, but never done animation. All right, perfect. That's why I'm here, I guess. Then there's the last one, which is if you hold down Shift on your keyboard and do the middle mouse click again, you pan around. So basically combining all these, that's how we navigate in 3D space. And that's navigation of Blender. You probably knew that, but that's okay. It's all good. Yeah, that's basically also what we do for animation. It's not like the navigation of the program is going to change much. So that's cool. Cool. All right. I'm really annoyed that this isn't working. I could Google it, but like, do I really want to do that? Because this should just be working, right? It should. It should. It should. That's annoying. Unless... Nope. I tried. Cool. Alright, sick. So, with the navigation in place, now comes the actual animation. So what we have here is a barrel. This barrel has a blender rig. So for the different programs, rigs are kind of made in different ways. In this case, the way that we move this object is represented by these two different things. These we generally refer to as controllers for a rig. Again, rig being the skeleton of an object. I guess you can say. The rig also kind of includes these controllers. It doesn't matter. But we call these controllers. So we have these two different controllers. We have this spherical thingamabob, and we have the boy around, the circle. Yeah, I guess it's just a circle. These controllers we're going to be using to move this object. So what we want to do to be able to move this object is that we select, just like drag, select, like left click, drag, and then select this ball so that we know these two are selected. And then we go up to the left, in the left corner, up here, and we press on this one called object mode. We want to change this to something else. That being not here. Oh no. Am I dumb? The barrel is not showing on mine, but I've opened the file. Do you have any idea why? That is a good question. You know what we can do? Let me try and reopen it as well. Because this should be the file that you are sitting in, right? And it doesn't have the barrel. That is interesting. What about you, Mariam? Do you have the barrel? Does that work for you? Let me try. See if this makes a difference with the file that I gave you. I mean, I guess I could recommend that you restart the program. That's the easiest. Try and see if that might save it. Because the file should be, if not, but it has the ball over it. Interesting. What if we do this? Okay, that works as well. Huh. That is a very good question. Yeah, do let me know. There's a bit of a delay on this stream compared to me reacting to what you're saying. So do keep that in mind. I'm trying to answer as fast as possible so you can follow along, but if it's not there, that's a good question. Otherwise, oh, miracle? Oh, sorry, this is like an open ending. I need to know if you fixed it. Did you fix it? Because I need to update. Oh, you haven't updated Blender? Okay, that's fine. You do that. I'll go over the like simple task of it in the meantime. Another classmate of mine. on the side. You can say hi if you want to. We're doing animation. Oh, classmate, also working on her thesis. Yes. Yeah, look at that. Getting all behind the scenes for this lesson. That's crazy. Okay, you can update your blend in the meantime though. I'll go over the things you can follow along if you can in the meantime. But we have these controllers. So what we want to do is that we don't want to have anything. Maybe no, that's also. Is this barrel rigged? It is. It is rigged. Okay, so I don't know what I'm doing, but every time for some reason it changes these things up to the left of it. Basically what we want to do is that we want to select this boy and then we want to go in pose mode. So up to the left, we have object mode. We want to click that for the drop down, and then go to pose mode. Pose mode basically means that now we have a working rig. That means whenever we manipulate these different controllers, it will also manipulate the object. We want to move the barrel, right? Yes, so we want to like kind of move it in an axis of some kind. So basically what we want to do today is that we're just going to make a simple barrel jumping. I'm going to do it in a style. You can do it, you can give it some personality, some flair if you want to. I'll try and go pretty basic and then maybe add some stuff onto it at the end to make it more fancy, because personality is really good in animation. We really like personality. It makes it a lot more fun to look at. I'm just gonna do this real quick because see, this is like my life right now, because usually I can just be in the back and be like, oh yeah, I'll just do that while Shelf is sitting and fixing everything. Now I'm the one doing it, and you have to see it live on camera. That's great. Okay. So Laura, when you've caught up, do remember if you go back in the video, it's not going to be live anymore, so it's going to take a while for you to catch up to stuff. But yes, when that has been done. So again, let me repeat. We select the controllers, just left mouse drag over the sphere to make sure it's selected, and then we go up in object mode and pose. That means we've selected these specific controllers, and that means we can then edit them now. For your toolbars, just click to view and you can find your toolbar. But how did you make the yellow ball in blue? Oh, like in this case? So it's blue because I'm in pose mode after I selected it. So first I select it so it lights up in the orange coloring, I guess, and then I change it to pose mode. And this automatically makes it so when I select it, it's going to be blue instead. Which is basically just a visual indicator that this controller has been selected. That's like the gist of it, right? If that makes sense. This is still not working, that's annoying. That's not even working, damn. All right, I wanted to check if like Blender normally, I might be able to. Because this might make it easier for you guys in case I do use hotkeys. No, it's interesting. Okay, I don't know why it's not showing the my mouse clicking and stuff, but it's fine. We'll manage with that. All right, cool, you found it. So now we have this selected. That means we can manipulate it. So basically, this is generally how you animate. So this is like the basic of animation. You have these controllers. You're able to manipulate the object. Now comes the more interesting part. So down here, we have this little bar where you can see a lot of numbers. I would assume it goes up to, you see about 250, which is fine. We don't need to change that. So this is the timeline. The timeline is the animator's second best friend. Because the best friend of an animator is that, so what we want to do is that we want to go down here and then we want to hover the menu thing and then drag it up. So we can see it better, basically, because this becomes very important. Now we want to change this to something called the graph editor. And the graph editor is an animator's best friend. So what we do is that down here in the left corner, you see a small little clock. That clock comes up with a lot of menus for you to change your this view thing. In this case, the timeline that you can see right here. Underneath that, I'm just going to pull this. I'm going to do this so it's easier for you to see. So in this case, over here, we have this called the graph editor. This is what we want to use. So we switch it to that. This is very important. This is very fun. This is very good. Animators love it. Sometimes hate it. It's a love-hate relationship, and that's okay. That's just how it is with 3D. It's exciting. So all animation is going to be made in this, you can kind of say. So let's try and make some animation. In this case, what I would like us to do is that we take the animation of this jumping barrel step by step. So what we do first is that we just want to make a simple jump. Cool? The reason why we're going to start doing that is that then further on we can add more things to the animation. That being it not just jumping up in the air, but also to the side and things like that, which makes it a bit more interesting. But let's start with just learning the basics of the animation by making it have a normal jump. Cool. So what we want to do is that we want to select this circle, thingamajig. It's blue when it's selected. And then what we want to do with this is that we want to press I while hovering this space up here, the space where your object is in the scene, because depending on where your mouse is, that is also going to change when you press hotkeys and stuff. It can be kind of annoying, and sometimes you're like questioning, oh shit, that's not what I wanted it to do. It's mostly most of the time because you have your mouse some random place. So what we want to do is that we want to press I while up here, and then we want to key. This is basically, we're making something called a keyframe, or a key for the keyframe. So everything in animation and like movies, all these different things are made in frames. And basically us as animators, we go through these different frames and change the pose of the object or the character, depending on what you have. So right now we want to press I, and then we want to select this called, oh, I need to select this first. We want to press I and then do location. This basically means that we have keyed right now the placement of where this object is, the placement is what you can see over here to the right, which are the transforms in the location here. That kind of like determines where it is in the 3D space, right? And that is basically what we have keyed right now. We want to, maybe it's important to say that we want to make sure that your timeline, this bad boy down here that I'm dragging, is in 0. So before you key, if you have already keyed, you can just Control C and then go back to it, right? But make sure that you're back on 0, because that's kind of where we want to start the whole animation, to make sure that it doesn't start in the middle of the animation. So go down to 0, press I, and key location. That's our first key. You can now see that we have this small little thing down here. The more I zoom in, it's not going to make it any bigger, so it doesn't matter if I zoom in. It's fine. But that basically tells it, all right, the place where it is right now, it's going to stay there. Then we can go, let's do like up to frame 10. So at frame 10, so just by dragging this line thing, right, and moving it up to 10, at frame 10, we want to press I again, and then once again, key location. Now you see we have this line in between right here. Don't mind the orange dots, we're going to get to those. But this basically means that we have now told it that from one line to the other, that's how it's going to move. Meaning we keyed it at the same place as it like normally is, so it's not going to move, obviously. Now with that, we want it to actually move. So you can follow the exact like numbers that I do, but you don't necessarily have to if you kind of want to change it and not make it the exact same way as I do. A lot of the times it can be scary when you're new to these different things to not do exactly what the instructor or the teacher or something does. I get it, don't worry, I've been there. I used to do that at the beginning as well. But at other times, it's also fun to give it a bit more of your own personality. So by changing it up a bit and not doing the exact same thing. So you don't have to do like this specific number, but in this case, I'm just going to put my timeline to 30. Because this is where now I want to move my object up in the air. And the way I do that is we're coming back to some basic Blender things, is that to move an object, you select whatever you want to move, and then you press G. Now you can see it's moving around. In this case, we only want it on one axis. So after we've pressed G and it's moving around like this, before we confirm it, we press Z or Z to make sure that it's like only moving in that one axis that we want it to. And since we only want it to move up, we're doing the Z axis. So we're doing that. Now I just left click to confirm it, right? A lot of the Blender basics. I'm just making sure everyone can follow along. Now we've moved it up here. That means we've changed where the location is at this point. If we were to scroll in this timeline, you would see that the animation jumps back. And the reason why it does that is because we haven't keyed it. So the object or the controller technically doesn't know that we have moved the object. So it's going to automatically jump back to the last thing we keyed. And the last thing we keyed is at frame 10, where it's just standing still in that one place. So we have to go from 0 to 10 or from 0 to 30. So what I did is that first I went from 0 to 10 and keyed the exact same position. That means we just have a bit of time before it actually starts jumping. So after I have keyed it the same position at 0 and 10, then I go to 30 and I move the object to wherever I want it to be. Let's do here. We can always change it later. And now I want to key this again, location. And now you can see that we have an extra line. That's crazy. I accidentally moved it. Don't mind that. I just Control Z to make sure that it went back. So now we have this line. You see that we have this. This is why the graph editor is very important for animators. Because as an animator, you will spend like at least like maybe 80% of your time in the graph editor, maybe more, depending on the person you are, I guess. So with this, we have now created a line. The reason we put a key at 10 is because now you see that between 0 and 10, it's not going to move. But when it goes from 10 to 30, it's going to start moving when scrolling through the timeline. Also, to play your animation in a faster way, instead of having to click or something, we can do shift space at the same time. Or hold shift first and then press space alongside it. Then it's going to play. And you can do shift space again to stop it. That's key bindings and stuff becomes very important to have a fast workflow when it comes to working. So we generally want to use stuff like that, especially as an animator, because you don't always want to go down and then figure out how to start the animation, because I don't even know how to start it in Blender from a button. I think there is a button somewhere that plays the animation, but it doesn't matter. It's not important. We have key bindings, and that's what's important. So we're doing shift space to play the animation. Keep that in mind. So now we have these two keys. That means it has a certain amount of time before it gets to 30, and then it's going to stop moving, because now we haven't told it to move anywhere else. So because it's a jump and it has kind of like the same force as moving up as it will moving down, we're going to try and put this same amount of time in between it reaching the top and it reaching the bottom. So in this case, we went from 10 to 30. That's 20 frames. Now we want to move from 30 to 50. Because then we have 20 frames in between the jump and the fall. I'm only doing it for this case. It doesn't have to be like that necessarily when jumping, because then you talk about physics and gravity, how that force like affects your jump, and if it's something that's heavier, it's going to fall faster. If it's something that's really light, like a feather, it's not obviously going to fall very slowly. Doesn't matter. We're just going to go for the basics. But I just wanted to point that out. So now we're at frame 50. So what I could do is that I could move it down by pressing G and then Z again and try and line it up. I do not want to do that, because then I have to sit and like make sure that it's at the exact position that it needs to be, which is going to take way too long. And I don't have brain capacity for that, which is fine. So I'm just like playing around, trying to figure out like, because I thought you'd be able to see these different things. Okay, I assume you can't. Doesn't matter, we're gonna leave that. Maybe it's because like bones have these different numbers and stuff elsewhere. Don't know where they are. It's fine, we don't need them. So instead of doing what I just explained, we're gonna go into this. So we're gonna, down here to the left, we have this one called bone, and we're gonna do the drop down menu for that. So the little arrow to the left of it. This is gonna come down with 3 different things now. These 3 different things are basically the axes for in what direction the object is moving, right? So it's the X, Y, and Z axis. In this case, we have moved on the Y axis, which is why it's jumping upwards. So I select this specifically because that means I can see like it's highlighted. And what I want to do is that you see this small little key that I made here that is in 0, where we know that it's like at the bottom of it. I will basically just select that by left drag clicking it to make sure that it's selected. Then on the keyboard, I'm going to do Control C because I want to copy it. And then I'm going to move over to frame 50. And then I'm going to do Control V. So I'm basically just copying the key. Pretty simple, like when understanding it, right? But just making sure. Not sponsored. This means that we now have an animation that moves up and down, which is what we wanted. Now, we want to clean this up a bit because, as you can see, it doesn't look very realistic. We kind of want it to be a bit more realistic. Even if it's a barrel, we still want it to have some laws of physics that is at least preferred. So what we're going to do is that we're going to go in now and we're going to move these bad boys. So right now, the way I'm zooming like this and making like smaller and bigger, it's actually not changing the animation, it's just changing the visual of how I see the animation. And I do that by holding Control and then middle mouse clicking while hovering over the graph editor. That's gonna like make it jump like this. I'm just trying to like match it kind of like this. Again, it doesn't change the actual animation, it just visually represents it differently. Cool. So what we're going to do is that for this key specifically, we want to change this because right now you see these small, let me do this real quick. So what I did right there is that I just, I basically locked the other two axes. So in these small little locks, I locked the x-axis and the y-axis. Oh no, x-axis and the z-axis, so that I'm only affecting the y-axis. This just makes it easier so I don't accidentally go around and change the other keys. You can also just hide them rather than locking them. It might be easier because that just means they're not even visible at all, which I probably prefer actually because I still want to be able to manipulate them, but for now I'm just hiding them. So I just click off these checkboxes from the X and the Z axis. So this key, I want to change this because right now it has these orange dots, yellow, whatever, depending on what, if you're colorblind or not. I don't know what a colorblind person would see. If I then left click and drag this, it's going to change the way that the key is acting. I will actually lock these as well because that would get annoying because I don't want that to change the other keys. So I both lock them and hit them just to make sure. So when I drag in this one, it's gonna like change that the way the key or the object is moving. So you can see the line of this, that's how the object is moving. So now it like moves like this instead. But as you can see, in between these, it also moves downwards because now it has the curve down. We don't want that, so I'm gonna Control Z that. Do let me know if it's going too slow or things get confusing, or if I explain things too much. I just want to make sure that everyone is on board, right? But what we're gonna do is that we're gonna select this key and then we're gonna right click it. That's gonna come up with a lot of different options. which can be confusing, but it's okay. I'm also confused. No, I'm kidding. Confidence. Under the one called handle type, we want to change the handle type of it. The handle type meaning that's the orange things that I can drag around and stuff. That's the handle. We want to change this to make it free. The reason why we want to do that is that now when we drag one of these orange boxes or circles, it's only gonna change it on one side of the animation or of the handle. That means I can manipulate this side without manipulating the other side, which is really good, can be very useful at times. That means when I go from key 0 to key 10, it's not going to move. It's only going to move when it reaches key 10. And then it's going to move in a faster motion. Sure, let's call it that. In this case, we could technically right-click this one as well, change this handle to free, and then do this. We don't have to, because if the key doesn't have anything on the other side, it's not going to change any animation on that side either. So you can do it if you want to, you don't have to in theory. So what we do here is that we're basically moving these keys to kind of look like this, so it makes like a full, like, what would you call that? Like a rainbow form. Rather than having these extra small, like moving down and then kind of like flattening out. We don't want to do that. That's something called easing out. And when a thing moves really fast, like jumping and then falling down, it's going to fall down really fast. Kind of like if I jump here, I move down pretty fast because obviously gravity's pulling me down, which makes it go faster. And if I have this ease out, it's as if I'm like flying, or like if anyone has played any games or watched like Harry Potter or something, like, or a classic magical spell of making people fall slower. That's what that would do, which you can see in the animation when it's moving like this. So it falls down, then it kind of eases out as if it's slowing down at the end. We don't do that when jumping. So that's the reason why we change this to make it go up like this, because that means it falls way faster, which is good. That's what we want. So cool. So now this feels a bit more realistic. You can always go back and change it a bit. I will do that, mostly because right now it still feels a bit too floaty. So what I am doing here is that I'm selecting the frame above, or the key above, and then I'm pulling in these, because that's basically just gonna flatten it less out. It's gonna make it more like rainbowy. So that means we have something like this. That feels a lot better. That feels a lot better. So that's what we're doing. The way I'm going back in my timeline is just clicking on the numbers up here, and again using shift space to stop and start the animation. Cool. I'm pretty satisfied with the way that this is moving. Hope you are as well. If not, you can keep working on it, or you can, yeah, it's up to you. Cool. Now we have the axis. Oh, now we have the animation on one axis. That's what we want. Now we want this to be applied on another axis as well, meaning that it's also going to move to the side. That's going to make it more interesting because we don't want it to just jump in a straight line. We could also make it like a bouncing ball. I'm pretty sure you can do like cheating and there's something called bounce here. I don't exactly know how it works. I think you might have to like key extra things, and now you have to turn all these different things into bouncing balls. No, I actually don't know how it works, but it has like an extra option. I'm not too familiar with how that works, but that is fine. I'm just going to delete these again. Don't do what I just did. It's fine. I just tested out. But we could then be like, okay, I'm going to copy this key. So I'm just changing this. Don't mind it. You don't have to do this. I'm just changing it to this, then doing this again. Wait, I don't want to do that. I'm going to do this free handle. Cool. Now we have this controller as well. I just copied and pasted it kind of like I did earlier by Control C and then Control V-ing later on in the timeline. If I change this bad boy to, yeah, what do we want to do? What happens if I do this? What does that do? Oh, look at that. It does have a bouncing ball. Oh, interesting. Look at that. Okay, so that's how it works. All right, see, we're learning. This is great. This is a great learning opportunity. Okay. So if I change this to this, and then I'm moving this bad boy up, does this turn into a bouncing ball? No, it doesn't. That's boring. Doesn't matter. We still have this. I'm going to change this to free, and then I'm going to do this now. I'm just showing off right now that this is possible, because if you've heard of the classic bouncing ball, this is kind of the concept of it. Right now that's very fast, so we do want to change that. If you see that, so now it becomes a bit more like, now we made a bouncing barrel basically. So we could do that to make that more interesting as well. Again, just giving a bit more flair. Actually, I will keep that because that's a bit fun. Actually, I'm going to add one more frame. I'm going to do this. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this to this, and then this to this. I'm basically just changing the forms of them. So I'm going to like Bezier under the interpolation mode, and then free to make sure that I can move each of these two separately. So they aren't being controlled by each other, basically. So we want to just extend this a bit, and then, so now we basically have a bouncing barrel. It could be a bit smaller. I will make it a bit smaller, since it loses kind of a bit of its bounce when it bounces. This is just how I'm making my barrel. Again, you can make your own. Cool. So now I'm done with this axis. As you can see, y-axis kind of complete. This is what we're going to keep. Now I'm going to unlock these two and then unhide them, because right now we want to make it jump to the side. So let's do it like about here. So we're going to frame 50 because that's when it lands down to the ground. And we want to make sure that it's landing at least somewhere that makes sense. So right now we're going to move it by pressing G. So we're selecting this controller again, we're pressing G, and then I'm pressing Y after to make sure that it's moving on the Y axis. So I'm going to move it about here. That's fine. Then I'm going to press I, and then I'm going to key location. That means now we have this. It's showing as if it's on the Z axis, and that's fine. That means we're just going to go into the C axis instead. So I'm going to hide the two other ones and lock them to make sure that I don't mess around with this bad boy anymore, because I'm quite satisfied with how it looks. And now I only want to focus on the Z. So right now when it moves pretty badly. That's fine. Right now, the reason why it's kind of moving like this, oh, does it lock? If I lock this, wait, hold up, I need to, oh, wait, that's crazy. I didn't know it did this. Okay, cool. We're learning. This is great. Learning opportunity. Okay, so when I hide these different axi, it also hides the animation. It looks like. So if I do this, yeah, it just hides the animation. That is very interesting. So we do want to keep it unhidden to make sure that we can still see the changes that we've made to it, but it still doesn't like change the actual animation since we've locked it, which is okay. Right now we haven't animated anything on the x-axis, so it doesn't really matter if it's hidden or not. But we go back to the y-axis. So right now, it only moves at frame 30 to 50, which we don't want to, because obviously we want the barrel to already start moving when it jumps at frame 10. So what I can do is that I will actually delete this key. And I will do that by selecting this thing, because right now it's in 0. That's why it's not moving there. So I'm just going to delete this by right-clicking on the key and then delete keyframe. I can't click on the green line. It's not disappeared, but it seems unclickable. Kind of like this. Like you're not affecting it, but it's still there. It's not because you have locked it. If anything, I guess you can try to make sure that all these different things are on, or like unlocked and all these different things on, and then you can like lock these again. If you want it to disappear, you can press the I to the left of it. I completely forgot about that, I'm not gonna lie, because then you won't see it. I actually think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna hide these two, because then I won't be affecting them. Does it still seem unclickable? I'm just trying to see if I can find anything. It might be because it's locked. If not, I guess you could deselect it and then select it again, like the controller, and then it might change something. Or maybe you've pressed one of these other different things. If it looks like what mine does, then you're good, I guess. I will continue in the meantime, if that's okay. So right now, it's basically moving like this. So again, we have the same case as we had with the up movement, with the whole easing in and easing out. So it starts like kind of flat, and then it slowly unflattens, goes straight, and then tries to flat down again. Yes, I did it. It worked. Perfect. All right, sick. Wait, what was the problem? Now I'm curious, because we can both learn from this. Do you remember I'm the substitute teacher? I'm here to learn as well. I'm kidding. We're doing great. Okay. But we are on this, and we kind of, if we let it play right now, it gets that easing out, which is kind of feels really awkward, as if it's like being pulled up first and then moved and then kind of sits still, as if it's like something carrying it and then placing it down. We don't want it to have that motion because we kind of want it to seem like the barrel itself was the one jumping. So what we want to do is that I'm going to hide these different keys so we only have the blue ones. And then I'm going to go to this key because this is the one that's important for now. Again, same case as before. I'm going to right click this key, and then I'm going to go to handle type, and I'm going to do free. That means, again, we can select these, and then we can manipulate this line ourselves without affecting the one prior to that. Because if we were to not do that, and we just let it fully do its own thing, like this, then it's going to move backwards. Which honestly kind of gives it a bit of personality as well. And that is also actually something that we call anticipation. This is great. In animation, we have something called the 12 principles. When it comes to animation, 2D animation and 3D animation are pretty similar because it all comes down to a theory that has been applied throughout many years, ever since 2D was a thing, and those principles haven't changed since 3D came out. Meaning, as an animator, you still use those specific principles to do animation. I'm not going to go through all those different 12 animations, but as an example, we had the ease in, ease out. That is a principle that we use to make things slow down or like not be as hard, like as if it's hitting something, because sometimes we're not doing that. If you were to run really fast and then stop, you would always have some type of energy going through your body that makes you just move that little bit extra, making it seem more real. In 3D, we obviously have to well, fake this so it doesn't just stop. In this case, there's also a principle called anticipation. And that is what we're doing here. So the way that works is that we're basically allowing the viewer to understand what is about to happen. If we don't have anticipation, something will just move without any clear understanding for the viewer of what's going on, and that's why we do some anticipation. That means, as an example, if we were to animate someone jumping, we kind of want it to go down like this and then jump. When we talk in real life physics, I would do that because it gives me more like power in my legs, but it also shows you that I am about to jump, which makes it more interesting and allows the viewer to have a bit more time understanding what's about to happen. That is a great thing to add here. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't mean to, but it's great. Look at that. You as a viewer will understand, okay, it's about to move, or it's about to do something, rather than just jumping. Which is why it's very good that we had the same key on 0 and 10, because now we can do this with ease. Cool. So we still kind of have the same problem at the end. It's still slowing down here, which we don't want it to because it's still in motion. And we want it to keep moving. So I'm just going to unhide the y-axis to see where it's still jumping. And then I'm going to make a key. Oh, I'm going to copy this key, and then I'm going to add it the exact same place as where I made the Y key. So just Control C, and then Control V where I want it to be placed. So now we have these different keys. This allows us to keep moving the object, basically, which is great. So what we're doing here is that I'm moving this. I press G and then I press Y, because then it's moving specifically in that direction. So I select the key, press G and then Y, because it's only moving in the Y-axis. So here we kind of still want it to move, but just enough for it to actually understand that it's about to slow down. Look, so it's still jumping, and then it's automatically slowing down every time. Every time it's falling and hitting the ground, because that's kind of gonna remove some of this energy that is going through the body, since we are hitting with ground, and it's kind of just the extra jumps is an effect of it landing. So right now it looks like this. Cool. So at the end, we still have the problem of it easing out, and this makes it look awkward. So what I can do to make this a bit more interesting is that I can take this key, the last key, I can press G, and then I can do it in the x-axis and move it further to the right, so it doesn't match the exact frame or the exact key as the jumping key, the Y key, because that means when it now moves, it has a bit extra time of it like sliding across the ground, which also makes it more interesting to look at. I'm just changing a bit on these keys to change up how this key affects, because since it's 3D, they're kind of trying to automatically interpret how it's going to move. And by me moving this key, it's also going to change the way the line is affected on this side over here. So when I do this, you can see it still changes. And I kind of want that to change by pulling this one down a bit. So now let's test it, see how it looks. Okay, it looks okay, but we can probably do it a bit more by moving this key a bit to the right. It might do something. Okay, so it's still slowing down a bit too much, more than I want it to, so I'm going to move this up a bit. Okay, that's better. I like this. Cool. So now I have this animation that moves in these different frames. Right now, as you can see, if I just let it keep playing, it takes a while before it goes back to the beginning of the animation. Sadly, I can't just change the amount of frames it's going to play through here where I am right now. As you can see, it goes all the way up to 250, and then it becomes gray. That means it's not playing animation that is in this gray area. So if I want to change this, I have to go back to this small little thing over here to the left, this little button that we clicked earlier for the drop-down menu. And then I want to go back to the timeline, which is what we started at the beginning. As you can see here, it comes up with some new options. You can also see your keys here, but you can't see the actual curve of this key, which is why we are not working in this menu, because we're not able to manipulate these keys independently ourselves. We're only able to move the position and when it's like doing these different things. But up here to the right of this menu, we see that it says 250. This is a bit too much. It's playing a bit too long. So I'm just going to click this and change it to 120. That's me. If your animation is longer, just make sure that the timeline is long enough to be able to see your whole animation. Right now, I'm just giving it a bit extra room to work with. That means if I do choose to make the animation a bit longer, I will have a bit extra frames to work with without having to go back and change this. Cool. So after I've done that, I will go back to by clicking this little thing again, and then going back to the graph editor, because we still want to keep working on this. But now if I just let it play, it's not going to take as long for it to replay, as you can tell. That just makes it so that if I do want to keep playing it and I get tired of having to move it back automatically all the time, then it's gonna obviously just be a bit faster. And we do like fast. Cool. So something like that. That's good. It's very good. Sick. Okay. So I'm pretty satisfied with how it is moving overall. This is as far as I want to get with this specific thing. So now we're going to add a bit more characters to the barrel. We have the base movement of this barrel. Now I want to go in, and I can always add like small extra jumps if I wanted to, just have like that tiny bit more movement in its animation. But that's up to you. That's a personal preference if you want to spend time on that. But what I want to do now is that I want to move over to the other controller. So I want to say goodbye to this one, because we're satisfied with this. And now we want to select this ball that we have going. And the reason why we want to choose this controller instead now is that this controller allows it to rotate. Technically, so does this, but this rotates the whole barrel. And we could use that for something. We could definitely use that for something. But in this case, the barrel's rig is like, imagine the grid down here is the ground. And if you were to rotate this and do this, obviously the barrel would go into the ground. And when it comes to animation, usually at all cost, we want to avoid any clipping. Clipping, which is also the case for like modeling and stuff. What we want to avoid is that things go through each other, because obviously if I do this, my finger isn't going to go through the other finger. So if we see that in like very famous movies or something, it it I'm trying to find a video right now that's really interesting actually. It doesn't look very realistic, and the viewer will see it and be like, okay, that's bad. So what I want to show here, sorry if that was very loud. We have a scenario in Avengers actually, where Thanos, he snaps and it clips his fingers. Usually in large productions like that, you don't see arrows. I can't seem to find it right now. Or can I? Let me check real quick. I'm pretty sure there's like one frame of Thanos when he snaps. His fingers go through each other or something. I think it was. I might be wrong or remember it wrong, but there's something like that, which is really interesting to see because when you're not and sitting with 3D all the time, things like that can be very interesting to see happening in big movies. Okay, so for the animation, in this case, since we want to give it a bit more personality than just jumping, we want it to be able to bend. This bending basically helps it. It's something that we can call follow through or secondary animation. That is basically the effect of something else that's moving. So let's say that my arm, if I just switch to Bootcamp, if my arm moves like this, but if I'm moving it very fast, it's gonna like do that. Does that make sense? Like this makes it more interesting than just, this makes it very boring to look at, but having the effect of my arm being affected by physics makes this animation look a lot more interesting. And that's usually, in when it comes to the principles, something that we refer to as secondary animation. I want to double check if I'm right. Or follow through in things. Okay, so I guess it's follow through. So that's like the effect of like something moving, or like a tail, or like something that's doing that extra motion of when walking or moving. That's follow through. Secondary animation, as far as I remember, is things such as a cape that's like flowing in the wind, or things like that. So similar to my arm thing, to make this look more interesting, we want to add that to the barrel. And the way we do that is by selecting this controller. This controller will be very important since we want it to rotate. So I'm going to use this right now. Instead of what we've done in the past is that we have made the barrel be like standing up and then it's bending down and then jumping. But that, we've seen that too many times. We're going to change it a bit. We're going to make the barrel be affected by the wind. So when the barrel is moving backwards, the body's going to move like this, as if it's like dragging along. The wind being affected by physics. I do want to point out, if you want to be an animator, but you hate physics and all these different things, when I went to school, like high school, I guess, I failed physics. I am so bad at physics. If you're bad at physics, it's fine. You can still become an animator. It just makes sense over time. But it's fine. I was good at all the verbal, oral subjects. I liked talking, I guess. So yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. So instead of pressing G, you can press G, but we're going to press R instead for rotate when we've selected this thingamabob. So we start at frame 0 where we want to key. So when we've selected the ball and we have gone to frame 0, we want to press I again, and we want to key rotation. Similar to last time, we click this small button down here to the left for the drop-down menu, so we can see all the different axes. I don't know what this W thing is, so just completely ignore that. That is very irrelevant. I'm just going to hide it because I don't know what it is, which is fine. So now we have a key here. So like before, at frame 10, we had a key. So we want to key here as well. For now, we're just going to change, or we're just going to key without doing anything. So what we're doing is that we press I again after we've moved to frame 10, and then we key rotation. So now we have these two keys. Cool. Cool. That's good. And I usually, a lot of the times when I start animating these other parts of like an animation, I like to go through the keys and then put just some extra keys so I know about where things have to be animated. So again, I moved to frame 50, which in my case is when it lands. And then I'm also going to key this in the rotation. We haven't done anything, we've just set keys, which is fine. So after I've done this, now is going to be where I start manipulating them. So first of all, we want to, at frame 10, where we have set a key, we want to press R, and then we want to do it in the x-axis. And now we want to key this in rotation. Now we can also see which key this is. This is the X key. Perfect. So that means we're gonna lock all the other boys, and I'm gonna hide them so I don't look at them. And now we have this. As you can tell, it's moving like this, which feels awkward because right now it's kind of just bending down and then moving back to the way it was before. That's fine. But what we're going to do is that since we want it to be affected by the gravity or the effects of the motion, of the, I guess is it kinetic energy? I don't know physics. I'm pretty sure kinetic energy is what is created when things move. because molecules do something. Doesn't matter, it's not a physics lesson, so who cares? But it's in motion, so we want it to be affected by it moving backwards. And we're going to do that by selecting this key. And then again, it's doing the whole easing out or easing in. We don't like the easing in when it's fast movements like this. So we're going to take the orange thing and then we're going to drag it until it kind of looks like something like this. It's personal choice, I guess. But for now, this is what I'm doing. That means when it's moving, it's going to be a lot faster in its movements, which is great. Over here at frame 50, I'm just going to choose this one. And then I am gonna, actually before we do that, we're gonna move all the way over to when our animation ends. And I can see that by doing this, and then it ends at frame 86 for me. You do yours, don't worry about it. I'm just gonna put a key. I'm just gonna, again, select, drag, Control C and then Control V where I want the key to be. So now we have a key at the end. That means if we affect this one, it's gonna like change the way that it moves towards that key as well. So for this one, we want, again, like we want it to be affected by the wind. We want the back to be like this effect. Like our head is trying to follow along, but the power is too strong, so we can't keep our head that far up. I'm just going to do something like this. Now we're going to take this, and then I'm going to move it by pressing G, and then in the Y-axis, because we want to kind of like this, like it's bending, like. And it's still having that. We will be fixing that. For now, we're just trying to get some key poses. And this key pose is how we kind of want it to be moving throughout this whole thing. So the way we can do that is by selecting this bad boy. And then we're gonna drag this. So now you can see it's being affected a lot more by the wind. But as you can tell, it's kind of like it's moving too slowly towards bending back as if air is dragging it. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to press G and then Y and then move this upwards. Perfect. And then I'm going to drag this a bit more and I'm going to drag this a bit more because we still wanted to have that effect of like moving back like this. Do you see that? Now it does it way earlier, which is great. I'm just going to send this a bit more because that makes it more dramatic. That might be too much, but I can do this. I can change this a bit, which is fine. This is still also a bit too much, maybe. Something like this. Yeah, that's kind of cute. That works. Again, I'm just kind of adjusting a bit until I get something I'm fairly satisfied with. And then I'm going to take this one as well, and then I'm going to drag this to get like a nice curve in this graph. Because it's like, it's moving like down and then moving up and then kind of like changing to its normal position. As you can see here. Cool. So right now, we have a decently solid like start to it at least. it might be moving a bit too quickly towards something like that. That's nice. Something like that. It's okay to always go around and tweak a bit because it's about finding a good balance in what you're trying to animate. We're going to do this a bit. Okay. So right now it lands kind of like this. But because of like it landing, it's a pretty hard land. I kind of want it to be like, so it's right now it's doing boom, pow, and then it's jumping. And then I want it to kind of like get the effects of the jump as well in its back. And I can do that by putting keys like this. I'm gonna right click this and then just gonna change it to I don't know, something. I swear it's gonna work. It's fine. Automatic easing? No, that didn't do it. How do I? No. Sure. I mean, I can just manipulate it myself. But I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna right click that key and make this free. This bad boy when it lands, and then I'm gonna drag this upwards because now it's gonna get the boom, like it's gonna get that small like jump in its back as if it as if it's gonna get affected by gravity. Boom. Do you see? Like it's kind of getting affected by gravity in that way, which is a very fun. I'm gonna take this key as well, and then I'm gonna copy it to about here. Oh, and then I'm gonna also make this one free. Sorry, I'm going a bit too fast. I'm just playing around with how I want my animation to move, right? So I'm gonna, since this is free now, I can do this exact thing as well and get that same motion twice in a row. So right now it's moving like this and then kind of easing towards being normal, but then it gets another bounce. And then we kind of want this to have that extra bounce as well. We're just making them all free because it just gives a bit more customization. This is what it looks like now. It's a small one. It's a bit fun. Okay, so now I don't really like the ending of it. So what I can do is that I can take these, I can say this bad boy, I can move this down because I kind of want it to move towards being upright. So it's still gonna like move normally in a sense. And then it's gonna ease out a bit more. So I'm gonna take this last key and also move this, press G and then X to move it. And now I can make some of that follow through animation of it being affected by the gravity by making it bounce a bit. And I will move this back because I can use this key, take this, Control C, Control V it a bit later on. I can take this bad boy and then I can kind of like get that small. I'm doing the exact same thing, just doing the key thing, changing this a bit, because then it gets like a tiny bit off of an ending by just adding extra keys and then moving them a tiny bit, so it just moves like getting that effect. Because if I were to just do that, seems really unnatural, depending on obviously what you're trying to do. But if you like hitting a wall or something, and yeah, that is my animation. What can we change? Maybe I can make this a bit faster because right now it seems a bit slow. No, that's not. What about these? Okay, so I can change this, just move it a bit more. When it comes to animation, it's a lot about like, especially when having to make cinematic shots, it can become a lot about those really small details to make it interesting. A lot of the times we also think about or try to recreate human mistakes, because mistakes is kind of what makes us as humans more interesting to look at. That we never move perfectly because that's kind of a boring way for the human body to move. So a lot of those small details for the body to actually move, that you don't necessarily really pay attention to when a human moves, but when you think about it a lot like deeper, it becomes a lot more prominent and interesting to look at for a person. Like if they're walking, maybe the way that their foot like moves a bit while like taking a step, things like that can make animation a lot more interesting. So in this case, me adding this small like extra bounce for the barrel to kind of like line up again makes it more interesting to look at and less boring. So that is the reason I did that. And yeah. I'm thinking if there is anything else I could add to this barrel. I'm not too big of a fan of the way that, as an example, like it takes a bit too long for it to line up, and it's like a very big motion for a very small jump. So what I could do is that I might be able to take these bad boys and then move them downwards. And then maybe take this and then make the change of it a bit less. Just a tiny bit, just moving it a bit. And then because this motion isn't very big, we can also make this smaller. Pow, pow, pow. Now we can see that this moves very maybe something like this. That also becomes a bit much. So I'm just changing it a bit here and there. It's about those small details. But what I could do is that I could move this down a bit, as if it's lining up a bit more with itself. Kind of like this. Cool. Maybe make this smaller. Cool. Okay. This is my small bouncy barrel. Any questions? Yes. Cool. So usually, so what I'm sitting and doing right now is that since I'm doing all the animation for my thesis project, I am sitting and doing a lot of these different things a lot. So it's like we have a ton of different characters and each character needing animation. But because we don't have a lot of time, I have to be very quick with how long I spend on those different animations. Which can become a thing because if you have like a deadline for when it comes to these different things or like bigger projects and all that, you kind of need to reach a certain state and then kind of be satisfied with the different things in animation. Like for example, this barrel, I could easily sit and like tweak on it for hours if I want to make sure that it becomes exactly what I had envisioned or what I had visioned. Envisioned? Something English. It's hard. But because a lot of the times we have this like more strict schedule and stuff, you have a bit less time to create these different things, and you have to be a bit more open to how long you want to spend on trying to create something that's perfect, which at times can be quite nice because that means you're not sitting and working on the exact same thing over and over again, which sometimes can become kind of dull. Which is fine, but it's nice to get to try some other different things and not sitting with the exact same thing for like a long time. But that's mostly a personal preference, to be honest. And yeah, so cool. If there aren't any questions and people feel satisfied with what they have created, we can end it here. Yeah. So, animation can be quite niche, I guess, or it's quite niche. A surprising amount of people would rather do other things. Which when I feel like when you think about like this whole 3D world and stuff, people usually mostly want to do animation. But like as an example, in my class, we don't have a lot of people that want to do animation, which was quite a surprise. I didn't even want to do animation at the beginning before I started at my school. And now I am, well, pretty much only animating. So I don't know what that says about me. How much time do you spend learning animation at CADA? Okay, that's an interesting question. So the way that our semesters are like created or built up is that it's kind of sometimes spread across the different semesters, depending on what they want to teach us, I guess. That being also because my semester or the way that my semesters worked isn't the same as how the new class worked. that means the new class, or the newer classes, they have a lot more animation than we did. So we had like an introduction course with animation throughout some weeks of learning how to animate and all these different things. And then we got a lot of projects that challenged us to basically use that animation and what we had learned in that period of time in like bigger projects, in group work, and all these different things. And then we've had some cool master classes as well from cool teachers from the industry, from outside. And actually some people from, as an example, from Disney, animator from Disney, who the class under me, they are gonna be having lessons in animation from a person that works or has worked at Disney for many years, if I'm not mistaken. Like OG. So it kind of depends, but at CADA, it also kind of becomes a thing of if you're interested in this subject, you get a lot more time to learn it and stuff. Since I was really interested in animation, I have ever since, I think, second semester, every project that we've been allowed to do, I have pretty much just been animating. Every time I went in a group, I was like, don't worry guys, I got you. I will do the animation so you guys don't have to, which everyone was very happy about because they weren't interested in animation. So I was like, yeah, no, don't worry, I'll take that job. So I got the chance to do a lot of animation throughout my education. So it really also depends on where you put your focus, I guess. And yeah, and the fact that all right, so the class under me, since they're gonna have this teacher from that has worked at Disney and stuff, I'm very jealous because we didn't have him specifically. We had another really cool guy, and I learned so much throughout that period. It was really interesting. A lot of things that I hadn't thought about. But yeah, but it's really cool that we also get the experience of meeting people like that to come and teach us, which is very cool. Laura, are you interested in starting, or have you considered it, or have you applied, or anything? But yeah, animation is very cool. Personally, I think. I do see a lot more people from the classes under me being interested in animation, which is quite nice. A bit more people to talk about like specific things in animation, and it's really nice to have people to talk to and give feedback, and be able to see a lot of cool projects. I've considered it. Okay. Where are you like in what's your level of education that you are attending right now? And what's holding you back? I'm very curious about that. Are you interested in animation specifically? I feel like the cool thing at CADA is that you do have the time to also specialize, meaning you have time to focus on the things that you are interested in as a person. So that like being the case, that means I get to do a lot of animation while a lot of other people get to do a lot of other things. And then we kind of combine those different things, we can make a lot of cool projects. Like the people I'm in a group with right now for my thesis, they don't want to do animation. So they were like, what if we combine? They get to do their thing and make a cool project. I get to join that project, make some cool ass animations, and then being able to combine those different skills, right? And creating something sick. But yeah, at CADA, thankfully, which is really cool. We as students have a lot to say when it comes to things that newer classes and semesters get to experience and work with. So as an example, I have given a lot of feedback through like student council stuff at CADA that they should introduce more animation. Because for people like me, I really wanted more animation throughout the education, and they obviously listened, and now have implemented a lot more projects and experiences to work with these different things for newer classes, which I'm very jealous of because I wanted more animation. But I'm really happy that they get to have the experience of trying it if they actually find it interesting. I'm a high school graduate and I'm probably more into the 3D modeling part, but I think it sounds nice that you get to animate as well. Right. Okay. Yeah, a lot of like 3D modeling, that's also what caught my eye when I started at Trumax, because I wanted to 3D model big time. And since at CADA we get to go through every single specialization to see what really fits us, and learning the whole workflow of trying everything. Then back then I wanted to do 3D modeling, and then I tried animation. Beforehand, I was like, I'm never going to do animation. It seems so boring. I will not do that. Then we did it, and I fell in love. So that can happen. I've applied to the animation school in Viborg before. I'm trying to look for more ways what it means to go into this industry. As far as I understand, the CG line that doesn't have animation. Oh, right, at Viborg, yeah. As far as I heard, it's two different lines, right? So one is specifically animation and the other one is like specifically CG. It might be. I don't know too much about how their curriculum works. But hey, what I can say is that we learn everything. My messages are delayed, by the way. Yeah, I know. It's all good. Yeah, the stream is quite delayed. I wish I could decrease the amount of delay, but sadly, I don't think I can. It makes the conversations a bit more interesting to have when chatting. But yeah, no, but we do learn everything. If it does interest you, at least what we're doing here, right? These weekly small lessons in the different 3D things is kind of a taste of what we also get to do at CADA, just in obviously smaller amounts, since we don't have as much time to go through everything. But yeah, I would recommend though, in next week, on Thursday next week, we have open house, which we do every second month. But this is the last open house for this school year. So we won't have any more open house events before the next year has already started. So I would recommend coming to that, and you can always ask questions. I'm also going to be there. If you want to talk to me, like face to face, physically, I'd be more than willing to do that. I'll be around showing off some student work as well. And yeah, if that is interesting, then you can come and hear a bit more about the school and what we learn and stuff from a bit more higher up people, like the administration stuff. They're going to give you all the actual details. I'm kind of just going off of the exact details that I know. What's the most important skill for beginners that is a must for their career in animation? Ooh, that's a really interesting question. What's the most important skill for beginners? I think openness and allowing for feedback. A lot of the times when you're working, especially with creative things, there is this sad feeling of like having to, you don't want to show it before it's done. That means you're sitting in animations specifically, when you're sitting with like a shot or an animation that you've been looking at for multiple days, and you've really you've become blind to all the flaws. When you're sitting and looking at that, having an outside and being open to having that outside view from people is really important, because they might be able to point out some things that you don't necessarily notice. That makes the animation look awkward and stuff. Especially in animation, I personally would say that animation is probably one of the harder things to learn in 3D, just because that we see, us as humans see things move so often, and every day, all the time, you see people walking on the street, so you get this feel of knowing if things are off. But when you're sitting and looking at the same animation over and over and over again, you kind of forget to look at those mistakes, and then other people from the outside will be able to tell you those different mistakes. I think that's a really important thing, not having to defend yourself for things you've done, and just like take it, hey, this jump looks kind of awkward, maybe you could make it jump a bit further, things like that, and then being open to that and being like, yeah, I'll try that. I think that's very important to improve as an artist, especially in animation. Yeah. Sounds like a really cool learning experience at your school. Yeah, no, it's very fun getting to experience everything. Really build your own character as well. Full on character creation, going through all these different years. I've changed a lot, especially like when it comes to interests as well and stuff. Yeah, it's very cool, and we get to meet so many cool people. Like we have so many cool guest teachers that come out and educate us in things. We have this guy. If you're interested in Pokemon, as an example, so if you watch the Detective Pikachu movie, we had rigging, the whole thing about like giving a character a skeleton, which is what we have in this guy, the bones. We had a guy out to teach us rigging, who created Pikachu in Detective Pikachu. Having experiences like that and just meeting random cool people is a very fun experience, because you don't really think, and everyone's human, and it's you kind of think of people that has created all these things as like, wow, that's crazy, and then you just sit there and have a normal civil conversation with them about like everyday things and like what's going on and how they work and stuff, and it's just like it's a very cool experience getting to meet people like that. It makes everything seem a lot more real, and that there are a lot of artists and people in the industry that are really good and there to support you as an artist and as a person. Yeah, but yeah, definitely come next week for an open house. It starts at 17, if I'm not mistaken. 17, that's when the talk starts, so preferably be there a bit earlier. But administration is going to have a presentation going through everything that we teach at the school. And yeah, And you can find it on our website, like more information about it. Let me send that real quick. Where you can find that. Let's see. Open house, open house, open house. Let's see, open house. So if you go here, all the detail should be in there. Address and stuff. Okay, so at 16:30 it starts, and then we will be showing off some schoolwork, 3D things that students have made, and you get to hear the administration talk. My thesis will start next year, so any tips? Oh, okay. Scheduling. I don't think I have ever experienced how important scheduling is as when I started my thesis myself. Making sure that everything is planned out and that you have a really good pre-production, knowing when everything's going to happen and everything has been so important, especially because we've been working in a group. So that has been very important. And it has been so nice to be able to follow that and living up to some specific standards that everyone has been like, because everyone's kind of counting on each other to be able to finish these different things. And it's kind of different when you're working alone, obviously, but still having a schedule is so nice. Making sure that you are mentally in it and you don't slack off. Because a lot of the times, making a thesis, writing a thesis, it can be very, what can you call it? Loose, I guess. Then you're like, okay, I'll work a couple of hours that day maybe, and then yeah, it's fine. I can sleep a couple more hours. But you kind of get out of that loop of getting that consistent workflow. And there I would 100% say that having a schedule and keeping yourself up to deadlines makes your final result a lot better. Definitely a personal opinion, but I definitely think it's a very valid personal opinion. Yeah. Any other questions? Because otherwise I will say goodbye for today. And I know there's the delay, so we would have to sit in silence for a bit. I can talk a bit in the meantime if you guys do have anything else. Yeah, and I'm done soon from this education. So my next semester, since I'm on my 4th semester, and we have 7 semesters in total, or I'm on my 6th semester, and we have 7 semesters in total. That means next semester I'm gonna go on a trip to for internships. So I'm basically gonna be looking for a company that I can work for, and then after that I'm done, which is really, it seems so crazy, but I'm very excited. Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you so much for coming and participating. It was very fun. I got to geek out a bit on animation. Usually it's Chelve, who's the normal teacher for these events, that get to geek out about 3D. But it's been fun that I got to explain a bit and share my information and skills in it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a lovely day and that I might see, if interested, you next time, either for open house or for bootcamp. Bootcamp will start an hour later next time, so it will start at 18 instead of 17. So if you are interested in tuning in for a bootcamp next week, make sure to put it in your calendar that it starts an hour later. And yeah, cool. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye. Don't mind the pause screen. I know it says stream starting soon. I will fix that in just a moment. Look at that live editing. That's crazy. All right, bye.